class, right? So in today's class, I think somebody in this class talked about that if we can have a session on API, it is going to be great. And as I mentioned, that API is going to be heart of this complete automation course. And today the news is that we are starting API or application programming interface. The first thing first, here is the agenda. So today first we will be talking about where are we, right? And then next topic number 2, topic number 3, 4, 5, everything is actually your application programming interface, what exactly it is. And I know that many of us have a fear with this word, application programming interface, right? If you don't have any fear of this word, that is absolutely fantastic. But when I started this network automation journey, I had a little fear about this application programming interface. And that is why we are going to understand it from various examples. I have 3 or 4 examples in today's class. And the takeaway from this today's session should be that you should be able to understand what API is and how we are going to use it. Okay. So if you give me next 1 hour and 15 minutes, believe me, one of the most crucial concept of this course is going to be under your belt, and it is going to be for longer period of time, right? Having said that, let's move to our first board where we will be talking about where are we with respect to complete course. So as you all know that when we had broken down the problem of network automation, we learned Linux as a part of platform. We learned Python language as programming, and today we are starting this protocol. But what exactly this protocol is? Does that mean that basically we are learning OSPF BGP again? So the answer to that question is that absolutely not. We have already learned about these OSPF and BGP concepts in some other course, but protocol doesn't mean only OSPF and BGP, right? Protocol means some rules, and basically these rules are actually governing your communication. So if 2 systems are talking, maybe 2 laptops are talking, right? Then there must be some rules, and those rules are known as protocol. It is as simple as that. So if we are talking about new way of network automation, then there must be some new protocols. And I think you must have heard about NetConf and and the RESTConf, right? Believe me, we are not going to cover NetConf and RESTConf in today's session, but today's session is going to be the building block to learn NetConf and RESTConf, right? Do not fear with these names. These are very, very simple concepts. These are just like any other protocol like SSH or Telnet, right? But because we are talking about network devices, we need something new, and that is why we have these protocols, right? And if you consider this as a number 1, this as a number 2, so we are done with number 1 and number 2. And today's lecture is going to be the start of the protocol, and then it is going to it is going to have to make your solid base to understand these data modeling and representation. I think you all have heard about Yang, XML, then JSON, and then YAML, and so many things, right? But what these are, right? For us, these are just few names, but believe me, today's session is going to be a little bit philosophical. And maybe you might think that we haven't learned much today, but I am again repeating, today's session is going to be the basis or the basics or the fundamentals to understand NetConf, RESTConf, and basically Yang model or XML or JSON or YAML representations, right? It is going to be very, very interesting because people have so much fear about this word that they do not learn, and they are mostly confused in these words, right? So the fundamentals, I'm again repeating, are going to be in today's lecture. So we will be covering module number 3 and module number 4 in next couple of sessions, or maybe next 4 or 5 sessions, and then we will be finishing with the automation tool, which is Ansible. Having said that, let's move to the next board where we will be talking about what exactly is API or application programming interface. So for now, what I would say is just forget about this word. You can think about it that this guy has pasted a picture which is of library. So shall I presume that library is an API or not, right? So this is the question which might be coming to your mind. So of course, I have pasted a picture, and now I request you just forget about API. Let's have a normal discussion, right? So what do you see here? We have a library, and presume this library is quite big. This spans multiple floors, right? Maybe 3 or 4 floors. There are thousands and thousands of books inside this library, right? And as I mentioned, that it is going to be almost impossible to manage all these books if we do not have a system, right? And you all know that most of the libraries has a complete system of arranging these books. Maybe some books, and there are so many compartments here. Here, basically, we might have books on fiction, right? Here, maybe science and technology, right? Here, maybe books on mathematics and so on, right? There are so many compartments because this library is a huge library, and that is why we need a system, right? So let's introduce a character today, maybe Mr. Prashant Patilji. We have Mr. Prashant Patilji here, right here. And now Mr. Prashant wants to use the services of this standard library, which is huge, right? So generally what is going to happen, Mr. Prashantji will go inside this uh, what we can say library, right? And Mr. Prashant ji has a specific requirement that he is learning a course on Python. So he wants a book on Python, right? And then he knows the author also of that book. And maybe he has seen some picture of that book also in somewhere on the internet, right? So Mr. Prashant ji is thinking that if I am taking a course on Python, it is going to be a nice idea if I read some books on it too, right? So he is visiting this library, and inside this library, he will be finding a section which is based on maybe which is named as the computer science books, right? And inside those computer science books, maybe Mr. Prashant is going to find the exact book he's looking for, or he's looking to learn Python. It is as simple as that, right? Maybe that this compartment, this specific compartment, is on the third floor. So here, Mr. Prashant is doing a lot of effort, right? He's doing a lot of work because knowing unknowingly, he is actually familiar with the system. System of what? System of this library. He knows that actually a standard library is having different compartments. And if I want to find a book on Python, he needs to go to a specific compartment which deals with the books on computer science. And that is why he got his book with the same author. And he just picked the book, just went to the librarian and registered, or basically you can say have this book using a card or whatever the system this library had, right? But why I am giving this system, right? Or basically why I'm giving this analogy or the example, believe me, it is very close to application programming interface. How? I'll let you know. So suppose now the problem of this system is that Mr. Prashant has to know about the library, has to know about the different compartment, has to do the work. So what the developers of this system or the library or the owner of this library, they are very customer centric people, right? They are customer obsessed, you can say. So what they are doing now is they are actually building one more one more system on top of this one, right? So what they have done a superb job, and they have built a robot. And you must be thinking what? And yes, you are right here, that basically the owner of this library have built this robot which sits at the window, right? And the interesting thing about this robot or the new system, which is built on the existing, it doesn't mean that basically you do not have these compartments or something. Maybe you have or not. Maybe you have dismantled the previous system, but now the new system basically is having this robot which can sit near to this window. And now Mr. Prashant Patil can come here, and this robot is saying, Mr. Prashant Patil, you do not need to go inside. Then Mr. Prashant is saying, but Mr. Robot, I want to get a book. And then Mr. Robot is saying, no, you can't get inside. Just tell me the book name. Just tell me the author name, and I will bring that for you, right? And Mr. Prashant is very, very happy with that, right? That now he doesn't need to know about the system of library. He's just giving instruction to this robot. Maybe he can give a piece of paper and he can write exactly there that Mr. Robot, I have written the name of the book and the name of author right on this paper, and can you bring that for me? And this guy is really intelligent enough to understand this command, and he knows exactly which book is where. Maybe he doesn't know the compartment, but he has a sharp memory, and in that memory, he has stored the location of each and every book. This guy knows, this robot knows, when Mr. Prashant Patil gave him this little piece of paper, this robot knows that where to go and from where to pick that book. He already know that the book is present on the third floor at this location. He will go there and pick that book. And now Prashantji is really happy. Why happy? Because he doesn't need to deal with all the nitty-gritties of library. He doesn't need to go inside, doesn't need to find the book. Mr. Robot has done this job, right? Again, why I am giving this analogy or example? Because it is very close to application programming interface. Why? Just now try to understand what exactly this system is, right? The system is actually the system of books, right? It's a complete system. I can say that I can use the services from the system, right? Or I can say that basically this is my application. It is as simple as that, right? Who want to use it? Mr. Prashant wants to use it, right? So what the new system says, previously Mr. Prashant has to go inside and search for the book, but now this application is giving Mr. Prashant Patil an interface in the form of robot, right? He doesn't need to deal with the complete library. He only needs to deal with this Mr. Robot. It is as simple as that. So basically what this robot is, this is your interface. So what exactly happening? Just try to understand. Basically, you are, or the owner of this library are hiding the nitty-gritties of this library system, and they are just throwing a simple interface to the user of this library. And the simple interface is robot. Robot is just saying, just tell me the book name and the author name and I will give it to you, right? Very interesting. So I think two words I have taken here, application and interface. What is the meaning of programming here? Maybe Mr. Prashant is pretty good with respect to programming now. And now even he doesn't want to deal with this Mr. Robot, right? What he's doing is he has written a script, right? Because he needs to go again and again to this library and want to find, maybe sometime he want to read book on Python, sometime he want to read books on maybe different technology like OSP or BGP or whatever, right? So he's written a specific script. And believe me, this script, which is a program, or you can say which is a software, is actually talking to another program or another software. You can argue with me that Mr. Vishnu, this robot is not a software. This is a piece of hardware. But believe me, the intelligence, whatever mechanism this robot wants to, or robots understand that which book is where, that is exactly the processing or the software, right? So now Mr. Prashant has written a software, and that software is talking to another software. So it means that this interface understands programming, right? Or basically through programming, you can access this interface or the complete system, which is the library system or application. And that is why I'm going to call this robot as application programming interface. It is as simple as that, right? Believe me, I'm going to compare this complete analogy with when we reach to router and the switches, I will compare it. But try to understand what application programming interface is. Here, basically two systems, two programming systems, two softwares are talking to each other, right? And the important thing is the second system, or basically Mr. Prashant Patil's script, doesn't need to know the nitty-gritties or inside of this library or this application. This program doesn't need to know where the book is. This program is just saying, I need this book with this author, and that is it. The remaining thing is the responsibility of this robot, and this means that this application doesn't want to expose all the nitty-gritties regarding it, right? It is just interested in exposing an interface to you through which you can access this complete application. And that is why we are calling it application programming interface. And believe me, this is the closest analogy I have. But if you do not get it, that is perfectly fine because we have two more examples around it. But in the meantime, if you get any doubt, any question in your mind, any curiosity in your mind with respect to application programming interface, please do ask, right? Just raise your hand at any moment and I will be answering your question. So now here we have example number 2, right? So what do you see here? We have this socket here and we can see a plug here. It is as simple as that, right? And generally in India, this socket is going to provide me the voltage level of 230 volts, right? And most of your appliances, most of your electrical appliances in your home, maybe it is AC, fridge, or maybe TV, most of them generally works with this specification. If you do not get it, that is perfectly fine. Just try to understand that this is just a number which represent your power, right? And what is the requirement of your power? So basically, this is giving me this is giving 230 watt of electricity, volts of electricity, which is the necessity to run these AC, fridge, and basically TV, right? And what exactly this AC, fridge, and TV has? These has a plug, right? And this plug goes into this socket, and then when this plug goes into this socket, this wire, the plug wire is going, it will be receiving electric current. But do you know there is a complete infrastructure behind this plug or behind this socket, right? And you all know that if we consider this is the plug in your home, right? In one of your wall, what is going to happen? You all know that inside this wall we have electric wires, right? And eventually these electric wires are coming from a pole near you, which belongs to the electricity department, right? And this pole is connected, is connected to another pole over the wires. You all know that, right? And maybe another pole, and eventually you are reaching to electric grid or the grid, right? Where electricity is generated and basically it is delivered through this wire to your house. So this is the complete system, or you can say this is a complete library, right? If we compare it with the previous analogy, you are not interested at all in understanding the nitty-gritties of how current or the electricity is coming from the grid to the socket. You are just interested in running your all these devices, and that is why you have plugs with your devices, and that is why you are going to put the plug into the socket. You are going to get the electricity. It is as simple as that. And now what we are going to do, we will be adding some terms. Previously, I didn't added any term while explaining the concept of APIs. So we will be seeing 3 or 4 example of APIs, and we will be introducing some terms along with, right? So what is happening? If I say what is exactly the system here or application here, in the previous example, you know that the system was the library system. Here, the system is electricity system or this grid system. You all know that, right? At the end of the day, the electricity is generated by this grid, right? Or you can say this is your application, the complete infrastructure through which your electricity is coming. That is your application, right? But is there any interface to this application? Suppose I say that, okay, if I say that it is pretty good that you have purchased AC, fridge, and TV, but if I say that to use them, just go to the grid, right, and connect it there, and then you will say that this guy is really mad. Why we will go to the grid, right? But believe me, at the end of the day, from where your electricity is coming, who is providing who is providing this electricity to your devices at your home? Eventually, it is the grid. But this is the system which is developed by the government, right? And that is why you are thinking me as a person, or basically what I meant to say is that if I guide you, just go to the grid and connect your AC fridge there, then you will be saying this guy is really mad, right? Because we have a complete system. But how you are actually utilizing this complete system? You are actually utilizing this complete system or application using this plain socket, right? And that is why I'm saying this is the interface to your application, because it is hiding all the necessary details, right? Because you are not interested at all in how the wiring is there, what are the different poles, how this electricity is coming. You do not have to worry about this. You are just dealing with this socket, and that is why this socket is your interface to this complete application of using electricity from the grid, right? And that is why we are calling this socket as application programming interface, right? The system is application, right? And why programming? Because I cannot relate it to program, right? But I think you understand the application and interface, right? So what is the plug here? So we all know the electricity is basically the service we want to use. In the previous example, it was the book, right? And the electric socket is actually your API, right? Then what is this plug? Believe me, unless and until you insert the plug into your socket, you are not going to get the electricity or the flow of current, right? It means that at the end of the day, this plug is calling that API. This plug, when go inside this socket, then you are getting the electric current, right? It means that this plug is calling the API, that Mr. API, please provide me the current. And how it is going to do that? By inserting itself into the socket. So your electric plug is just like a call or the request to use the service. It is as simple as that. And believe me, we are going to use it, right? Suppose we have a router. Believe me, we are going to use, right? This router is going to give us some API to use this complete router, right? It is going to hide all the necessary details, right? It will tell us that here is the menu and you can use all the services. If you don't get it, believe me, I'm going to explain it. But from this picture, the takeaway is that your complete system or application was electric grid. Electric socket was your application programming interface, because your plug, when you insert inside the socket, is getting the service of electricity. We are calling this plug as something which is a request to the service. What is the service here? Electric current. It is as simple as that, right? Having said that, I think there is a question from Mr. Prakash. Mr. Prakash, please ask your question.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there
So
any?
this is like program specific, language specific.
Yeah, we will be talking about it. Do not worry. But till now, do you have a picture
Yeah,
of
yeah, I
API?
got.
Perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
How we
So
are
it's
going to
like
do that? How we are going to do that? It is altogether different thing. But from these boards, I just want to remove, eliminate, destroy the fear of application programming interface. We will connect all these examples to the real APIs which we are going to use, but these are just the analogies. Okay,
okay, got it.
perfect. Anybody else? Any curious question coming to anybody's mind, please do let me know, and I will be more than happy to answer the question. It is already 28 minutes, and as I mentioned, today's session is going to be little bit philosophical, because we want to understand that why the knowledge which we have till now, program, right, Python, then NetMiko, we were successfully doing the programming with the NetMiko, right? Why do we need something else, right? And if we want to understand anything, we need to consider why behind it. And believe me, today's complete class is actually answering just one question. Why do we need something extra if we already had the Python and the NetMiko, right? As we discussed previously also, that there are some problems with respect to doing programming with that CLI approach, right? And we will see it again. So let's go and see another example, right? And we will be introducing some more terms. So here, you should understand what is the API. You should understand what is the service. Service was electricity, and you should understand what is the plug. Plug is actually calling this API service. It is as simple as that. Let's go and talk about another example. And you must be thinking that this guy is taking example of the pictures from the previous lectures. And believe me, yes, I'm doing the same thing. You must have seen all these pictures in previous classes also, right? So what do we have here? We have our favorite character here, and he is Mr. Rahul, right? Rahul has some pretty good appetite today. right? And unfortunately, there is no food at his home. So what he's doing, he wants to go to a specific restaurant, which is his favorite, right? And this is the restaurant, and I'm talking about the kitchen, right? So this is the restaurant kitchen. And of course, Rahul is not going to go directly into the kitchen, and he doesn't have to, right? Otherwise, Mr. Rahul has his own kitchen. He could have prepared food there, right? But Rahul is in no mood to prepare food on his own, and that is why he want to use the service of this restaurant kitchen, right? This is my restaurant kitchen. So what exactly he is going to see when he reaches to this restaurant? He will be offered a menu, right? Basically, Mr. Rahul doesn't have any idea about how to make butter chicken, right? Or maybe how to make paneer butter masala. He doesn't have any idea, right? He doesn't know where the kitchen is, but he knows that today his appetite is high. He want to eat something, and that is why he want to eat butter chicken, paneer butter masala with some naan. Maybe you be thinking that I'm not sure whether you are done with your dinner or not, right? But Mr. Rahul want all these things, and he has been offered with his food menu. It is as simple as that. And he is finding few things in that. And here comes our important character here. She is our waitress, right? She has asked this waitress that, can you bring these 3 dishes for me? And she's saying, of course I can. And she will be going directly into the kitchen and mentioning all the food items which are asked by Rahul to all these chefs, right? That Mr. Rahul wants paneer butter masala, butter chicken, and some naan. And these guys are pretty happy because they know how to make it, right? But try to understand, does Mr. Rahul need to know how to make paneer butter masala, or he needs to understand what is there inside this restaurant kitchen? No, absolutely not, right? Because Mr. Rahul is customer here. Mr. Rahul is just ordering some food, right? And waitress is helping him. It is as simple as that, right? So you must be thinking that, very good, Mr. Vishnu, that you have raised some appetite in us also. Or what point? What is the point of explaining all these things? The point is straightforward. Believe me, your restaurant kitchen was the complete system of making dishes. It's a complex system, which is understood by these chefs, but not understood by maybe Rahul, if Rahul is not a chef, right? So this system was pretty complex, right? And that is why this system is not exposed to any customer, but rather we have given customer this food menu, right? It means that whatever the services offered by this restaurant kitchen can be used using this food menu. It is as simple as that. So can't I compare this food menu from here to here with application programming interface? Absolutely yes. Why? Because this food menu is actually the interface to this kitchen. Kitchen has a lot of complexity. Kitchen has a complete system. These guys knows where exactly the various items inside this kitchen. Mr. Rahul doesn't need to know about it, right? And that is why he's looking to the application programming interface. What is the application? The system. System is your kitchen. And how you are taking services from this kitchen using this interface. What is the interface? The food menu is the interface. And believe me, in the real life also, we will be seeing such kind of menu for maybe if we have a router, maybe I can have menu for this router, and then basically we can call whatever the services offered by this router, right? And this menu is going to be actually the API. Why I'm calling it again programming interface? Because it understands programming, right? You all agree with me that your food menu is the interface to your kitchen, right? If I go into the context that now, suppose Mr. Rahul is replaced by a program, then what this program needs to do? This program needs to just read this interface, and this program can order. Maybe Zomato, right? Is a program. So maybe the Zomato program is interacting with the system of the restaurant to order them, right? Maybe there is XYZ, any system there, right? But overall, the whole sole point here is the food menu is going to be application programming interface, right? And the dish, whatever the final dish is going to be your service, right? And when Mr. Rahul order a service, then basically we are saying it is a request to the service. Then very interesting new concept is taking birth here, which is this waitress. What exactly this waitress is doing? She's taking an order from Mr. Rahul, and then she's delivering this order to Mr. Chef. And then she's taking the dish from Mr. Chef and delivering it to Rahul. Very important piece. And we generally call this as a transport, right? So if I want to make sure that the APIs are working fine between two systems, maybe between Rahul and restaurant, then there must be a transport, just like this waitress, right? In the case of our library, basically the instruction that were given by Mr. Rahul, maybe in the piece of a paper or maybe through maybe through the script, that needs to flow over some medium, right? Here the medium is the waitress. But then at the end of the day, Mr. Rahul has to tell something with respect to dish. This lady, the waitress, is going to take the order and deliver the order after some time. It is as simple as that. So waitress is a protocol, right, which is carrying your data from Mr. Rahul to chef towards the kitchen and from the kitchen towards the Rahul. It is as simple as that, right? If you guys having any doubt, we have introduced one more concept to this picture, which is the protocol. Protocol is a need, right? Which protocol? The transport protocol. Between whom? Between two systems, right? If I say two systems, then basically Mr. Rahul is not there. There is a complete program, right? When two programs are talking to each other, they need some specific language to talk. They talk with respect to a contract. I should not use that word though. So basically, whatever the protocol they need between them, it should ride over a particular transport that is going to known as what we call as transport protocol. It is as simple as that. Now let's move towards next board. Believe me guys, if you have any doubt, any question, please do ask. But from last three board, I believe that you have a clear-cut picture of what application programming interface is, but how this is relevant to a network engineer. Let's talk about it. And here is my question. The question is, can we consider CLI as an API? What is the CLI? We all know CLI is actually the command line interface. And what exactly the command line interface is? We have this complete router. This router has many interfaces and maybe many internal circuits also, right? A complete operating system is running on it, maybe iOS or iOS XE or maybe iOS XR, depending on the router type, right? But router is running a complete system. Router has many ASICs. Router deal with the packet, thousands of packets. But do you know that if I have spent around 14 or 15 years in the networking industry, it doesn't mean that I know each and everything about router. Maybe I know only 2% or 3% of this router. And yes, that's a correct statement. Why? Because router has so many things. It's a big piece. It's just an operating system. If I say how much you know in Windows, right? Can't say. Means basically you know how to use it. But what are the nitty-gritties of Windows? Do you know all the software which is running inside Windows? No, absolutely not. Right? Similarly, with respect to router, what we know is we know some commands, right? And those commands, some commands are config related command through which you can configure this router, and the other command can be the operation related command or the operational command, which you call as which we also call as show commands, right? Which deals with the current operation or current state, operational state of the router. Means we can check through show command how many input packets or the packets has been discarded by a particular interface, right? So we just know command, and that is why this router is offering us command line interface, right? Actually, it fits all the definition which we have discussed. See, we have a complete big system just like the library, just like the electric grid, just like our kitchen, right? We have a complete big system which we are calling as application, right? We want to use this application. What is the interface? The interface to this application is actually the command line interface, which is offered by this router. And how we can get to the CLI of this router? By doing SSH into it. It is as simple as that. So SSH is the transport protocol. It is just like the waitress we were talking about, right? It is taking the command from this human being using the SSH. Maybe he's running the local system here. But at the end of the day, somebody is taking this command, and then this command is going to execute on this router. It is as simple as that. Maybe SSH is giving you the command line of this router, and you can run as many as commands, right? These are very, very basic things, but just try to think from the point of view of application programming interface. Router actually giving us the application programming interface to program it, right? Or you can say it's a complete big system. We do not want to understand each and everything. Maybe I understand only 2 or 3% of the router, but I can do my job. If I want to configure maybe OSPF, maybe some people even do not understand OSPF, right? But if you connect two routers and basically a link between them and some specific statements, then the OSPF neighborship is going to up and running, right? This guy doesn't need to know each and every nitty-gritty of OSPF, right? But although we know, everybody here knows, right? But believe me, it is going to work if this person doesn't know the nitty-gritties of OSPF, how OSPF works. But if we run some command, it is going to be up and running. And that is what I'm saying. You do not need to know the complete system. If you know some command line interfaces, you can configure the router, right? So CLI is actually an API. Here, the complete router's operating system or the complete system is actually your service, right? Which is offered through an interface, and that interface is command line, right? You get that interface when you do an SSH from your machine. This will make you capable of running some command based on your user privileges, and then you can run some command. So basically, you do not know each and everything about the router, but still you are able to access it. So just make this thing in your mind. CLI is the first API which we have been using from for so many you can say for years, right? But this command line interface is actually more friendly to human being. And then you must be saying that what is the meaning? The meaning is just simple. The meaning is if you write some show command, it is going to give you some output. That output is in human readable form, and human are going to be very, very happy after seeing that output, right? Because they understand it, because they have worked on it. But as I mentioned, that is this output, whatever you run CLI and whatever the output you got, is it friendly to your program also? You will be saying not that much. And why? Because we have been doing this programming from last 3 or 4 classes. Believe me, what we were doing is we were having a particular router and we have written a script. Now we don't have human in picture here, right? We have Python script, we have this router, right? At the end of the day, what we were doing, we were actually doing SSH into this router. Once we get the SSH, we have basically this router console and we can run the commands over it. Believe me, it is as good as saying that instead of basically we have just replaced this human being with this script, but this script is actually doing the work of this human. Just like this human, he is going to do some show run or show version command. He will take that output, write that output into the file, then using the regular expression, even it is more difficult than a human being, right? Why? Because you are reading the output of your show commands into a particular file, then you just search that particular file and using regular expression, and you have seen that the process become little bit of complicated, although you have complete netmiko and regular expression libraries for that, but still this process is actually just mimicking, right? That instead of basically this user, your script is doing the same thing which this user would have done when he would have logged in. Okay, it is as simple as that. So the CLI based programming which we have been doing from last 4 classes is actually difficult, and as I mentioned that it has various problems too. Why? Because if somebody has changed the output of show version command, your entire logic of regular expression will be gone, right? You need to again write this program with the new logic. And why somebody is going to change the output of show version? Maybe you are upgrading this router, right? Or maybe some developer thought or made mistake in the previous version and he has changed it. And if it has changed, if the output is changed, then your program is changed. And that is why that approach of programming is bad, right? And that is why we need something new. This was means This we have done this kind of programming, but believe me, there are some more standard ways of doing the same thing, right? You do not need to mimic the same behavior just like a human being is logging into the router. There are so many other ways to deal with this problem, and we are going to learn what are those ways. But from till this point, you must understand that we need something more for the network automation. For the effective network automation, we need something more. It is just not working, right? I would not say it is not working because we have seen it has worked, but it is more what we can say. It is taking your time, right? It is just the that you are mimicking the behavior of human being, which is not the automation, right? Automation is something in which two machines can talk, right? Or two systems can talk, or two softwares can talk through the use of APIs. Okay. Having said that, let's move to the next board. If you guys have any question, any doubt, please do ask, right? Everybody here is a network engineer. We all are network engineers, and everybody must have heard about the name of this protocol, Simple Network Management Protocol. And believe me, Simple Network Management Protocol is also an API, application programming interface. What actually happens? Basically, through any network management software, or maybe your Python script, what you can say that Mr. Router, can you give information about this object ID? That object ID can be simple, which is checking the status of an interface. Maybe it is up or down. And believe me, because this router understands SNMP messages, or I can say this router has an application programming interface, right, which understands this SNMP messages, right, and reply in a standard format. Believe me, it doesn't matter on which code you are. The SNMP reply for a particular request is going to be same. It doesn't matter if you have upgraded the system or not. And that is why SNMP is more favorable to your programs or the network management system. So here, two computer systems are talking. Two computer systems are talking. They need a standard language between them. And that is what the protocol is. And that is what our SNMP is. And to work that SNMP, what exactly we are doing, we are hiding the complexity of everything inside this router, right? Mr. NMS or the script just asks, give me information about this object ID, and this object ID information is given by this router in a standard message. That message is going to be same. Now you can use this in programming in programming language, right? Or your script, because you know each and every time I'm going to ask, maybe I can ask what are the input drops on a particular interface, how many packets you're dropping. And if there is a packet drop, then you can take action, right? Because you know all the time this router is going to give me the output or input drop in a specific format, and that format is not going to change, which was my problem when I was using CLI for network automation. If I say if I'm using CLI, I'm using NetMiko, right? At the end of the day, through NetMiko also, we were just running the commands, right? And commands output is human friendly, and it was not friendly to your programming language, right? Really interesting. So this was the first thing which was more closer to the network automation, and that is why there were many network management systems which were based on SNMP, which is the application programming interface, right? Or which is the protocol which runs between this NMS software, network management software, and the router, and they are talking, right? Two systems are talking, and if two systems are talking, believe me, they are using a standard language or the protocol or the rules, and that is actually SNMP. Very interesting. But the problem with the SNMP was that it is more from the management side. Means if I need some statistics out of the router, I can get it from the object ID. If I can provide object ID, it is going to give me those statistics back. And on the basis of those statistics, I can flag that this interface is having more traffic than usual, right? And this is what most of the NMS system does. But it has limited support for configuration. I'm not saying that it doesn't have a support for configuration. It has limited support for configuration. What is the meaning? The meaning is I can get as many operational data from it, whether the interface is up or down, right? How many inputs drop, what bandwidth or what amount of traffic is going on a particular interface. I can fetch all the data. What is the CPU usage of this device? I can get all the data, right? But when it comes to do configuration on this router, SNMP has limited support. You can argue with me, Mr. Vishnu. I can show you how to configure a device using SNMP, but the configuration which I am talking about, which we will talking about in this next 4 or 5 sessions, believe me, SNMP is not nearer to that. So for management, it is good, but for the configuration, for migration, and for so many things, SNMP is not a protocol. SNMP is not a protocol choice for many network engineers. Configuration is very, very limited. Really, really interesting, right? So believe me, SNMP is also an application programming interface. Now, what we will be doing is we will try to understand API from network automation perspective. Although we know that CLI is the API, we know SNMP is the API, but we also understand that there are some inherent problems with those APIs. CLI is more closer to human beings, right? But mostly we use API when two systems are talking, two softwares are talking, right? And if we have one API which is closer to human being, and we have another as a program or the software, it is going to be a problem. And that is what we are seeing, right? When we replace the human being with our script, it was causing problem. We were using so many things. I'm not saying it is going to create a lot of problems, right? But yes, the programming approach is difficult. Somebody is going to change the show command output. Somebody has upgraded the operating system. It is going to make your automation fail. And that is why we need something new, right? So first thing first, from API perspective, you should understand that we are talking about network automation. If we are talking about network automation, I'm not talking about humans to interact with the networking device. I'm just eliminating humans from here. Although humans will be doing the programming, but program will be interacting with the network devices. It is as simple as that, right? So we have this program, we have this networking device, and now this script or program is talking to this network device. And I understand now from the previous discussions, whatever we have from last 55 minutes, that CLI is not the way to go forward. NetMiko is not the way to go forward. SNMP is not the way to forward. Why? Because it doesn't support the configuration which I want, right? But we all know that if these are not the way to go forward, what should be the way to go forward? It means that by this time you should understand we need something new between this script and this networking device. I am not going to tell my network program to log in into this machine using SSH and run the same command again, because if I do that, then I'm using the NetMiko, the same programming logic, right? The CLI logic. I do not want to do this because that is actually the hard way of doing the network automation. And believe me, most of the new devices has come up with the new way of network automation. I'm talking about single device, and I'm talking about the complete network also. If you have seen that the DNAC at once can manage your entire LAN, right? The SD-WAN we manage can maintain your entire WAN infrastructure. I'm not talking about the single device. Definitely, we can use the CLI to configure the devices using NetMiko. But believe me, if we are thinking on a larger scale, if we are thinking the ease of doing network automation, CLI is not the way to go forward. We need something new. And we have example. We have DNAC example. We have example of SD-WAN. How these guys have come up with this superb automation. What these DNAC or basically SDXS solution is, it is the automated way to create local area networking. What is SD-WAN? This is just the automated way of creating your WAN infrastructure. What is ACI? ACI is again the automated way to create your data center. It is as simple as that, right? And we are learning what are the new things, what are the new APIs these guys are using, because through CLI and through SNMP, it is not possible to come up with these systems like SD-WAN and DNAC, right? We want to know that nitty-gritty. We want to understand what is this new thing. And for that, we need to go on to the next board. And you must be thinking the next board is same, but the concept, whatever I'm going to explain you here is different. So till this point, I believe everybody understand here that we need something new, right? First thing first, if I have a script and if I have a networking device, let's consider an example. If we have this library system, which is having a robot, this is the API. And if I have a program which wants to interact with this API or the robot, first thing first, there must be some medium through which this program can talk to this robot. There must be some rules through which this program can talk to this robot, right? And that rule is something which is protocol. And just try to understand, we have taken an example of waitress. What waitress was doing? She was taking the order from Mr. Rahul. She was delivering that order inside the kitchen, right? We need the transport protocol. And that is why we need the transport protocol between this script with this robot. Similarly, if we want to do network automation, we should have the transport protocol between this script and networking device. And you must be thinking that, Mr. Vishnu, not a big deal. We already have transport protocol. SSH is one of them, right? And believe me, why SSH came into picture? Because previous to SSH, everybody was doing telnet. In telnet, we sent messages in plain text. What is the meaning of plain text? The meaning of plain text is everything is going in plain, right? Anybody can tap on this wire and can read your username and password, although skills are required for that also, right? But anybody can read that. And there were I just forgot the name about this guy, but this guy was doing telnet to do some changes in its network, I think several years back. And somebody has had steal basically all these username and password, and that intruder was able to do some massive blow on this guy's network. And that is why this guy was so frustrated that he has written SSH, that I won't be sending anything in the telnet. So shall I presume that SSH is going to be the new thing? Then you will be thinking that, Mr. Vishnu, SSH is not the new thing, right? Because we have been using SSH from so many years, right? What SSH gives you, basically, if you have a script or if you are a human being and if you use SSH, what is going to happen? It is going to connect with the with this router, and it will give you the prompt to again write what? Command lines. And we are just running away from command lines because command line interfaces to these routers and switches are human friendly but not program friendly or the software friendly. So does that mean that we are not going to use SSH? Everybody knows that SSH is one of the primary way you can connect to any device. Maybe it's a Linux device or maybe it's a router, it's a switch. You can do SSH into it. But what it is going to give you? It is going to give you actually the prompt in which you can write the command line. We don't want that because we are learning something new. So something new doesn't mean that you are going to reinvent the wheel. We know that there is a protocol which can connect these two things, your script with networking device, right? But what we can do, we can write something on top of it which says, Mr. SSH, we are not interested at all in running the command line, right? So send these messages, right? Which are the new messages of new protocol. And believe me, this networking device is going to understand that. Why? Because we have done a lot of work on these new devices. It is as good as that it is going to hide all the information, which is the nitty-gritty information of iOS, right? And you can talk to this device just like that. Mr. Router, I am interested in configuring your interface, and here is the data to configure that interface. Believe me, networking device is not going to run the basically you are not sending the commands to this guy. You are just saying, Mr. Router, I want to set the IP address on your gig 0/2 interface, right? And believe me, your network device is going to do that. How? Because now you are sending this new piece of information in new format to this networking device, which you have programmed to understand all these things, all these new things. So what is going to happen? You are going to run a new protocol, right? Which will be using SSH. but which won't be using the command line interface, right? And that new protocols are going to be your netconf and restconf. So just try to understand netconf and restconf are the way so that one system or one programming language or your program can communicate to these networking devices. It means that your router should understand this new protocol. It means that there is a development, there is a somebody has written code so that this router is understanding netconf, and somebody has written code so that your client also, your Python also should understand this netconf. Very, very interesting. And believe me, what you can do with this new protocol, you cannot do, or it is going to be very, very difficult to do that with NetMiko and Paramiko. You don't believe? Just try to take an example. If anybody is having any doubt, please do ask. Try to understand that what we are talking about now. As I mentioned, CLI is a problem. SNMP doesn't have that configuration skills. What are those configuration skills? Just try to understand. We have this router here. You must be thinking that after a long period of time, we are seeing router. We are network engineer. We just, when we see router, we become happy, right? So basically, this router is having one interface which is connecting to the service provider here. We want to run BGP on top of it. This is my gigabit 0/0 interface, suppose, right? Now, I want to do this through network automation because I have 50 sites, and all the 50 sites I want to connect to the service provider. Maybe this is my internet link, right? And maybe there are some other links which are linked towards MPLS, and complete LAN infrastructure is connected. So this router is very, very important, right, for your complete organization. But you are doing the change on 50 routers. You cannot afford to do a mistake. And that is why we are using automation, so that we cannot make silly mistake. But just try to understand. We need to configure this interface. We need to configure this BGP. And suppose we have total number of commands 4 here and then 5 here. Total number of commands are 5, right? What is going to happen? Suppose if there is a problem on this router and it is not able to execute this command. Suppose, what is going to happen in normal case? Suppose you are using your NetMiko module. You are using normal standard CLI. Don't you think that if you are running 9 commands and out of that only one command is not running, has some issue, some problem, maybe it is not supported by the router, maybe, right? Don't you think that 8 commands are going to be there on the router? And suppose if there is the case, and suppose if this command is very, very important, maybe this command is dealing with what are the routes you should get from the service provider. And if that is not working, then service provider is giving you maybe 5 to 10 lakhs BGP route in the internet. And if that is the case, this router is going to be, if that is not a powerful router, this router will be down. And your 50 routers are going to be down. You have made a very big mistake using your automation. And automation is going to be running on all the devices, right? 50 devices down because of the mistake. What should be the standard? What we use, right? When we do any change in our network, any change or any change window, what is going to happen? Suppose we have 100 lines of code which we want to enter, or basically 100 lines of configuration line. You all know that if this change doesn't meet the requirement, we need to roll back it. What is the meaning of rollback? If this is not resulting in what we want, we will remove whatever changes we have done. We will go back to the previous state just before this change, and we are going to call it a day. But when we do through automation, it was not checked, right? One command is missing, it was not run, and basically all the commands remains there, right? So can through SNMP or CLI, can we do this check that whether all the commands have been run? Either this change should go in its entirety or not, or there shouldn't be any command. If any one of the command fails, there should not be any configuration on the router, right? Or basically it should roll back. We cannot do this with CLI. Maybe sorry, SNMP, we cannot do with CLI. Maybe we can use some tricks in NetMiko, but believe me, that is going to be hard way of programming, right? Very, very interesting. The other type of things which we cannot do, or basically are going to be very, very difficult, is the validation, right? Suppose we have these several lines of code right here, right, which I want to push onto this router. Can your program validate what we are sending? Suppose I'm sending an IP address and because of a mistake, instead of writing 232, I have written 292. If that is the case, what is going to happen? This command is not going to be executed. And if this command is not going to be executed, then basically in normal way, every other command should be there. So what we need to do, if there is no this command, then basically I should roll back, which is not possible, or which is very, very difficult when we do in normal case, right? It is going to be absolutely great if whatever you are sending as a command to a router, your system, right, should check whether there is an error or not. Everybody can make mistake, right? But your system, whatever the network automation system you're making, right, should be intelligent enough to let you know that you have made a mistake there. Otherwise, it's a problem. So this validation cannot be done with SNMP or CLI, and that is why we need something new. Those transaction change, right? If one command is not there, then basically roll back everything. It is going to be very difficult with the use of CLI or NetMiko or SNMP. SNMP cannot do that, right? And at last, now I'm not talking about a single device. Just see what we cannot do from the normal NetMiko programming, which we have been doing from last 4 sessions, right? If we have this complete system or the complete network, can't we program this complete network? Maybe I need to get, maybe this network consists of 2000 devices. And what I need the configuration of these 2000 devices backed up on Sunday evening, every Sunday evening, right? Believe me, if you use the new programming method, new automation method, this job is going to be really, really easy. Maybe you can say that I need to make some decision on the basis of trigger. Maybe if this interface is heavily utilized, maybe 95%, that what I can do is I can send some of the traffic from here to here, right? How I can do that? Can I make this change on the fly using automation? Believe me, we can do, and many more such things can be very, very easy, going to be piece of cake when you use the new system. I haven't explained till now what this new system is, but you should be aware by now that through normal programming, whatever we have learned till now, we cannot do all these things easily. SNMP, we definitely cannot do. SNMP is more towards management. CLI is more human friendly, and that is why maybe we can do all these things there, but it is going to need superb programming skills. We are not programmers, guys, right? Although we understand some code, we can write some code, but we are not hardcore programmers. I'm not saying that you cannot be. If you want, you can, but our skill set is slightly different, right? At the end of the day, we need to design the network. We need to make new network. But yes, we are just ease our job by learning some automation skills. Okay, and that is why I'm again and again saying again and again during this complete course, I have been repeating this. We need to ease our job. Okay, and here is our last board of today's session. Right, what we will be learning from tomorrow. Today's class is just to make sure that you understand that we need something new. You understand what is application programming interface, right? We know that we have 2 systems now. One is going to be our script, this one. This is going to be system number 1 or software number 1. The second thing is our network or network devices. This is going to be our system number 2. Or maybe this is application number 2. This is application number 1. These 2 application needs to talk. No human being here. And believe me, when 2 application talks, we are human, right? And of course we are human. So if somebody change the output of show command, it is okay for us, right? We can understand. But if somebody change something here, which is not a standard, so suppose this guy is asking something, what's your name? And it is replying in any language, which is not understandable by application number 1, then it's a problem, right? Everything should be standard. And that is what we need, something new. And that is where the concept of netconf, RESTconf, which is the protocol between these 2 devices, and some standard way of data representation, YAML, XML, JSON, and modeling also through Yang, is going to be important. And you must be thinking that what are these new names? Believe me, we are going to cover them tomorrow. But we have all the fundamental knowledge now from today's lesson to understand where exactly we are going to use them. Just a request, before tomorrow's class is going to be on the same time. There will be class tomorrow, by the way, guys, although we do not have class on Thursday, right? But we will be having class because we have missed one class, right? Please join at the same time tomorrow. But I would request you that do not forget anything from this class, because if you understand, although today's class is just the philosophical, that why philosophical class, which proves that we need something new, because existing system, whatever we have learned till now, are okay, but they are not going to do the complete job. We are talking about considering this network as a whole, how to program it, right? This can be done using the new approach of programming, right? So tomorrow's class is going to be another interesting session where we will be introducing all these things. And if you learned all this, if you learn all these things, believe me, programming is going to be very, very easy, specifically network automation, right? Having said that, this is what I wanted to cover in today's lecture. If you guys have any doubt with respect to any concept, I am open for questions. Okay, please tell me, am I audible?
Yes, Vishnuji.
Perfect. Anybody, any doubt?
Yes.
I think there is no doubt. See you tomorrow at the same time for our next class, right? But one request, do not forget, just try to think about it for at least 5 or 10 minutes today's class before sleeping, and believe me, it will be there for a long period of time. Having said that, bye for now.
Vishnu, is English class start at 9:30 or 10?
English class starts at 9:30.
Vishnuji,
Mhm.
this netconf and restconf,
Yeah.
They are based on any programming language?
These are protocols, just like OSPF or BGP. Somebody has written in some language. For example, OSPF is
Okay,
written in some
but
language. Go ahead, please.
so the commands will be different. Like for example, we are
Just
using.
wait till tomorrow, man, and you will be
Okay.
getting it. Don't worry about it. Okay. Mr. Prashant,
Vishnu sir, are you going to get today's class recording today?
by tomorrow, 11 a.m. in the morning. Sorry, 12 a.m. 12 p.m. in the morning, 12 p.m. in the afternoon. It is going to be uploaded on the on the portal. Okay.
On our website.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Anybody else?
Um,
Yeah, Prashantji, please ask.
Vishnuji, are the old routers understand these protocols?
No. Old router doesn't, and that is why basically the NetMiko and CLI approach is the only way to go forward there. But all the new routers, mean irrespective of the vendor, they are making it aware of these new protocols. Okay, so future is going in this direction. But to make old router works, we also understood the CLI based programming, right? So don't worry about that too.